talk a lot about OpenAI. We talk a lot about NVIDIA as well. So these are the two kind of marquee names. I'm curious sort of how you see that landscape shifting and evening out. So there's so much obvious promise and faith in NVIDIA, for instance. When do we begin to see that sort of trickle down, and sort of what does it look like one level beneath NVIDIA?
I mean, NVIDIA is definitely
the lodestar.
I mean, holy mackerel.
Yeah.
I mean, based on visible alpha consensus, we see in the data, this year, the data center revenues are expected to generate over $100 billion. But looking forward several years, it's going to over 200. $100 billion in revenue growth for one segment is expected in the market. That is astonishing growth. And so, I think when we look at that, it just tells us, wow, there's something interesting coming down the pike, right? And so I think, for Apple, they're sort of the consumer end of that. They're the end user of that. What NVIDIA does is they're essentially building the infrastructure that's enabling all of this generative AI to even happen, to make it so that, users like you and I and organizations can actually have the compute power to do the generative AI things that are so productive and interesting.
So NVIDIA, obviously, I think for most lay people, that is their AI play, even though there's a lot more. On the software side, I hear Microsoft mentioned as a way, if you want exposure to kind of the next wave of technology, whether it's AI or whatever, I called it big data 2 years ago, now it's AI. Microsoft is a story. How do you think about that?
I mean, Microsoft is another monster. Based on visible alpha consensus, their Azure cloud business is expected to go from $75 billion and then over the next couple of years to $150 billion. I mean, so between NVIDIA and Microsoft together, you're talking about $175 billion in expected new revenue growth. That's incredible.
We had this news this week, Bloomberg reporting that two regulators are looking into Microsoft and NVIDIA when it comes to AI. And I wonder sort of what that tells you, not necessarily about those cases as they might be unfolding, but about where we are in this cycle. Again, we talk about the promise of AI, yet things are moving so quickly. You talk about doubling revenue. It's insane, like in the speed that you're talking about. But then you have news like this, and you wonder sort of what are the things that might slow this down or might bring this to a more normal pace? Is that even likely to happen, do you think?
I mean, it's a question that keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
I'm like, what happens if the consumer just doesn't adopt?
If it doesn't click.
Generative AI, it doesn't click. Because I really remember covering Apple back in the day, pre-iPhone, and I remember a lot of us in the investment community debating, is this thing going to take off? Are people going to like these touch screens? Or like there's no keypad? What about the flip phone? Remember those days?
Do, yes.
And I remember there were two really distinct moments when I thought, okay, this thing's going to be huge. The first was when I saw my 1-year-old child taking her finger on an iPad and very intuitively
it is very wild how that happens.
Engaging with this, couldn't walk or talk really, but can engage with an iPad. I was like, wow, this is really interesting. Wow, this could create a whole generation of users that are not really baked into expectations. And the second was my mom, widow and retiree, saying, I think I want to, convert from a flip phone to an iPhone. What do you think? Should I do it? And then it really revolutionizing her life. Things like GPS, text, the way she engages with us and her friends, really making her life a lot more fun and easy. And so if generative AI is able to do that, I think it could be really interesting.